Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Reject Modernity, Embrace Tradition, the show where we take you back to the good old days, just probably not exactly how you would expect from our title. I am Clayton Becker.
And I am Megan Cox.
And Megan and I are joined today by a very special guest to discuss rejecting X and embracing Twitter. The man, the myth, the legend himself. I don't even really know how to describe him. The founder, main curator of the Museum of Twitter, Jake Christie. Jake, how are you?
That's such a lovely intro. I really appreciate you having me on. I've had you on my show twice, and so I'm very happy to be returning the favor. And yeah, I would feel out of place discussing almost anything else in the show because you two are much smarter than I am. But like the rare subject where I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I think I could talk to some PhDs
you're
about.
The expert. You're basically getting a PhD in Twitter, so for sure.
Megan and I were talking about doing an episode like this because we both spend too much time on Twitter, and we sort of asked ourselves, like, we don't really feel entirely qualified to talk about this. And we felt, well, you know, I'm like internet friends with Jake. He's like a professional Twitter observer, or as close as you can get to it. So we're very happy to have you, Jake, and happy to have you discuss why Elon has in fact ruined basically everything that made Twitter the great website and experience that I at least remember it to be. So before we get into Elon's era of the last few years of Twitter, though, we want to take a step back and sort of ask, like, at least for you, for the hundreds of episodes you've done of the Museum of Twitter, what was it about, like, original Twitter, such as we can really speak about such a thing actually existing, that made it work? Like, why did it have such a big cultural impact relative to the other, like, frankly, bigger platforms that came of age alongside it, like Facebook and Instagram?
I mean, I think the thing I always go back to, and this is why whenever, you know, I look at how many people are currently using Threads, it kind of like blows my mind, but it's the sequential timeline. The fact that is the only one that has sequential timeline, I think it made it the perfect platform for two different types of thing, which I think the other sites weren't for. Obviously, it made it the perfect platform for any breaking news or any live sporting event or any live event of any kind. That, like, even though way more people are on Facebook, way more people are on Instagram, way more people are here or there, if you were watching, like, the Super Bowl and something happened, the site you'd want to be on would be on Twitter, because if you go to Facebook, you're seeing something from 2 days ago. And so there's that. And then I think, on top of that, I think that the other sites eventually got to this, but the way that the timeline mixed both people you just knew, your friends, and like really famous people back to back to back, and then people who you didn't know who you just thought were funny, I think is something that, like I said, it took a while for other sites to do. Because for a while with like Facebook, for example, friends and pages you liked were separate, and Instagram, you know, you might not, it was not as much about discovering people. But like the fact that the way I would always describe it to people, because, you know, I got really into Twitter when I was like 15 and have been, you know, on some level monitoring it closely because I've been on it forever. I think the way I would describe it when I first started using it, to people who were more interested in using Facebook at the time, was like, Twitter is both like social media and as a social network in the same place. Like, it is, you can follow your friends where you're like, oh, I'm following this person because I want to see what they're up to today. And you can follow, you know, I was really big into the weird Twitter era. It's like, I can follow this guy who has a cartoon avatar who tweets like 20 jokes a day. I don't know him. He lives somewhere I've never heard of in England, but I can follow him. And then I also can follow, like, oh, I'm a big fan of the Mets. I can follow David Wright. You know what I mean? Like, that was the thing that the power it had. And so I think the fact that it got worse one by one, we'll get to this, at all three of those things is why it's not the same. But the fact that it had that ability to have all those in the same place was something that, like, no other social media site could compete with. So even though it didn't have so many people, it always punched above its weight in terms of cultural impact.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And something that I'm always attuned to whenever we do any of these episodes is the question of whether we're imagining that things were better. You know, there is that sort of a nostalgia effect. So I say, do I just really miss the Twitter that I had in my early 20s because I was in my early 20s? But you're giving us some very concrete reasons how the platform has changed and why the user experience has gotten worse.
Yeah, to harken back a little bit to like the first part of your answer there, Jake, of like whenever you see how many people are using Threads, it's like, what the hell? Why are you doing that? Like, there really is a whole other world out there. But I think like it really sort of for Threads works sort of the same way in like that it's fundamentally like a public thing, really, right? Like, and I think that's sort of what, for me at least, initially like drew me to Twitter, which was the last of these major ones that I actually joined in like 2011 or 2012. But it was like that you don't have to be like following someone or to be approved to follow their page, really, their like their photos and everything, in order to see what they're talking about, right? In the same way that you had to for Facebook, and at least for some profiles, like have to for Instagram, right? And the way that you sort of like contextualize that of like, oh, well, it's your friends and these famous people and people you don't know but who aren't famous all in one, that like just totally like makes sense to me. Like, I'd never really thought about it that way before, but that like absolutely sort of like it really makes sense as like a different way that the platform worked.
And I think the limit on characters, the two groups other than the people you know, I think the fact there was a limit on characters inherently gave it, even though it wasn't like photos like Instagram, it was so much more of a performance whenever like when there were famous people or when there were people who were like, I just felt like there was just so much more of a pressure to be vaguely entertaining with a tweet than a Facebook update. Like on Facebook, you might just be like, I did this and this and this, but if you're doing a tweet, you kind of want people to like it. You want it to be funny. And so that's why I think
clever in a very brief amount of space.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's so much when we talk about how it was so much more culturally relevant than its size. I think it's because of all the platforms, far and away is most appealing to anyone who's in the creative arts or any like pop culture tastemakers, because it's like, yeah, I mean, for me at least, like I took to it so much because one of my better or worse, depending on how you ask people, qualities is that like I have so much trouble speaking without trying to be entertaining. Like I can't, I have to put things in a way that are funny, and like that make Twitter so much more easy for me. Like, oh, I'm not just talking about what I ate for lunch. I have to think of a funny way to say it. Like that really worked for me. And so I think that is, yeah, it just people, even like just regular people you went to school with, I feel like were trying to be a little funny on Twitter in a way that they weren't anywhere else.
Algonquin roundtable of our generation.
Exactly.
I do like. I think this is going to be hopefully a funny anecdote for everyone. Like at the same time that on Facebook you would post things like, you know, you have your name, it's like Clayton Becker is tired, right? Clayton Becker just ate a sandwich, right? And like that's the level of clever you're doing on Facebook. At the same time that I was making those kinds of posts on Facebook, I had like a multi-day plan on Twitter to get Gordon Ramsay to like tell off my German roommate for eating cheese sandwiches. And like I would like write things about like, Gordon, he won't stop, please save me, right? And like I think part of that is the format, right? Like it is the format that you're talking about, where it's like it is public. You can get that kind of like, we'll call it external validation from strangers, but then you're also forced to be funnier. And so it elevates the level of the post, as it were.
Exactly.
I mean, I can jump in there with an anecdote because I remember vividly the first time I had heard of Twitter. It was during the 2008 election, and people were talking about, oh, I've just gotten on this platform. I'm microblogging. I'm like, who the hell wants to read a microblog? It was this derivative at the time of the blogging, the blogosphere, the blogging and journalism kind of atmosphere. And we being everybody kind of collectively, took it in a very different direction. It's not like you're sequentially just like, I have a whole thought that is a component. Now we do threads, or we did threads, but I have a component of a thought and I'm going to relate it in the same way I would an entire blog post. You are condensing your entire thought into just that space. So the way of writing and the way of speaking, I think, as a result, really did change on the basis of how Twitter was getting us to start communicating with each other.
And I think that I think people who are younger, and I apologize, you can hear my radiator. Not much I can do. It's 12 degrees. But, like normally I'd be like,
it's like 80 here.
I can maybe ask my landlord if you could turn it on. Like, no, I actually need this on. But, I think the thing that, really, especially in like the early days and the heyday of Twitter, that I think even people who are younger and started using it maybe in like the late 2010s don't even realize is like prevalence of like people actually using hashtags, I think was a huge thing.
Yeah.
And that like what it felt like is if, you know, if I'm trying to think like of a celebrity who's big on like if Rob Delaney, the comedian, was tweeting like change a letter to make a movie disgusting hashtag or whatever. He did one, and then you did one. It's like you all doing a bit together, and like that was like such a. And then like so so that was. You know, it was like, oh, the famous people you follow are doing the same bit. You're doing it. Your friend does the bit. One of the funny accounts you follow does the bit, and like it felt so much more participatory in every way, especially in its heyday. And I think that's like that was really what drew it to me because I was just always trying to, you know, come up with the bits. Whenever I look at my oldest tweets, I mean, it's very unfortunate for me that I started Twitter when I was like 15. That was had to. I definitely when I got to college, I definitely deleted a lot of old tweets. But
as we all should practice good online hygiene. Yeah.
If you ever get cast in a Disney movie, Jake, they're gonna dig up all the old tweets, right?
I sometimes like because I did go back because I downloaded my Twitter archive and I deleted all of it. I never tweeted anything like that awful, but it just was like, you know, I shouldn't be using the F word that liberally about this, that, or the other. I shouldn't be. I get it, Jake. You're 15, but you should be nicer about Skylar White. You know, things like that. But no, I sometimes like there's a couple times I'll see a tweet where I'm like, okay, this is a little inappropriate, but I think 16-year-old Jake was spitting a little bit, so I'll leave it there. And I'll if I get a cast in Disney movie, I'll just explain it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I wanna say, I don't know if the people out there will be able to hear your radio. I do want to say that it is 81 degrees here in Los Angeles today. Just, you know, for the.
I mean, I live in New York, but I'm from Florida. I'm aware. This is a conversation I have with my family every day. Actually, more accurately, what it is, it's my mom will text in the group chat when she's going to work, and like, oh, I'm so cold, and I look it up, it's like 62 degrees, and then that's what it is.
All right, so I have thoroughly enjoyed this trip down memory lane. Making me genuinely nostalgic for the earlier days of Twitter. But I think, unfortunately, we do need to talk about how Elon has ruined the platform in basically every way. You mentioned some of this stuff earlier about how it's gotten worse at the three things that made it really good. Let's start with how it's gotten worse at those things, and then move on to maybe some of the more specific, like political valence type stuff that Megan and I have noticed.
Yeah, so I would say, like, when I'm thinking about like the kind of thesis that I ended up landing on of the three groups that it really appealed to, right? You've people you know in real life, celebrities, and just random funny people. I would say that the last group is the one that it like has had the least happen to it, just because it you know, random funny people are going to be anywhere. I think a thing that you just notice when I think back on the types of people, and I think that this honestly started happening even slightly before Elon, but Elon fully ran them off. The types of people who I knew who had Twitter accounts in like 2014, that type of person probably was just not on Twitter by even like 2020. Like, I think they just like non-text based social media, I think just kind of left. But then as things have gotten more cruel, both from a moderation perspective and just from a user base perspective, like people, the thing about Twitter is Twitter used to, and this is the thing I think people would not believe if they started on Twitter in like 2020, Twitter used to have like quote unquote online normies on it. Like, but even just before Elon bought it, it was really mostly just internet's like real hardcore internet people who were on it. But like no, normies used to be on Twitter. Like, you know, the most normal people I went to high school with had Twitter accounts. And I think that they got run off of it because of just the culture of it. And I think that Elon made it worse in so many ways. We'll talk about the specific changes he made. Celebrities, obviously, I think are just less active and honest on it, both for PR reasons and because it's just less of a safe platform to be on. Because it's also just a worse platform to be on because while there still is a sequential timeline, the adding of the For You timeline and the way that that's gamed is like it's just an awful way to promote anything. And it's such an insular community, and yeah, I think that it just is like a less pleasant user experience, and I think for so many reasons, and I want to get to the specific reasons, but I think generally the way it feels at the end user, because I think that people who are like, when I see people on like Blue Sky talk about how it changed, I think that I will say that I think people who are like very political posters have a significantly worse experience on Twitter than the average. Like, I have most people I know who, like, if you tweet about like sports and movies or whatever, like Twitter is worse, but I don't think it's as unusably worse as it is if you tweet about politics. Like, I know people who like are like, yeah, I occasionally get a racist person on my, but like it's, you know, but I think that it's like why it sucks to be a politics poster on Twitter. I think is a really easy sort of to get to, but how it's gotten worse for somebody to tweet about like football and movies, like I think that a lot of that is to do with the For You page, and then I mean I want to get to it because I do think the number one thing that Elon did to ruin Twitter was allowing blue checks to be the top reply to tweets. That is the number one single thing that actually
worked. Awful.
Because I think so many behavioral effects are downstream of that.
Yep. I think you see, and I absolutely want to get into this in more detail, but I think one of the things that it has destroyed more than anything else is a conversation. The replies are unusable. Now, if you quote tweet something, that is now the equivalent of a reply previously, but you just cannot have a conversation in the replies for anything.
Yeah, I think to this point, right? Another point about like the boosting the blue check replies is like it's bad, at least like from my perspective, even if he hadn't integrated like the Grok AI chatbot, right? Because like I mean, just like watching your show, Jake, right? Like watching, you know, all the tweets that you cover, a non-trivial percentage of the funniest tweets in the history of Twitter are replies, right? Like,
I mean, yeah.
They're so funny, right? Like someone will post something and then you could, because of the way that like the algorithm worked, that like it would boost replies that were good, right? That were funny, that were interesting.
Exactly.
And now it's like 30 people asking, Grok, is this true? And it's like, what? Like it's totally unusable. You have to scroll through like 15 replies to get to something even mildly interesting.
And obviously, so like what happened was, and I actually recently covered this because I recently covered the tweet where the person made the fake Eli Lilly account and said that insulin was free.
Yeah.
So I think that's so hard for people who don't. I remember when this was happening, I was trying to explain to my friends who were on Twitter who didn't engage with any of the right wing nonsense. And unfortunately, big problem minded. Since I was on like Reddit in 2014, and I would join subreddits called like monitoring hate subreddits. I've always been too noticing how bad the far right is on certain platforms, and I'm like, the thing is, what they actually believed was they believed that the reason why journalists who they perceived as left wing had so much influence on Twitter is because they have blue check marks. They did not understand that the causal thing there is the other way around, that they're journalists and that's why they've been influenced. But they were like, these left-wing journalists, they would be less powerful. People only listen to them because they have the check mark. So what we're going to do is going to democratize the check mark. Of course.
So it's fully star-bellied Sneetches here.
Yes, absolutely.
100%.
And of course, one of my favorite anecdotes is, and I'm not sure how much either of you care about sports, but if there's one listener who cares about sports, you'll appreciate this. The reason why the checkmark system exists to begin with is I think it's in 2011 or 2012. Someone made an account impersonating then St. Louis Cardinals manager Tony La Russa, who is a really old, grumpy guy, and he threatened to sue Twitter. And so, if you're wondering why there was the verification system to begin with, which then became a thing for all other social media sites, we can thank Tony La Russa. And that's the only thing I'll thank Tony La Russa for, because by all accounts, he interpersonally is an awful guy. But anyway, so they're like, we're going to democratize the checkmark. And of course, that defeats the purpose of the checkmark. The value in it is, and it's why it's so hard for them to get people to buy it now, because the value in it was like what it meant. Now, like, when that first was happening, I'm like, I can understand a version of like, if you want, it would not be a great thing, but if people wanted to pay for a checkmark and part of that was like verifying their actual identity instead, and like being like, and like actually like verifying who they are and what they do, even if they're not famous, I'm like, that's actually not like the worst idea in the world if you want to pay money for that. It would kind of ruin it a little bit, but it's like, but the fact that anyone could do it, and then it became a way to boost things, and then as it started to be a thing you could get money off of, like beyond the way that incentivized the behavior that is most antisocial and worse for a social network. It's like, it's just like, it's not, I mean, a lot of people want to attribute a lot of Elon's decisions to malice, and I think there are a lot of them that are. But this, I think, is he fundamentally just, since he's such an antisocial person, he doesn't understand what makes good social media. if everyone's goal is to try to like score points and try to like get the top whatever, that's actually not social. That's what you have. That's what you said, Clayton, where it's, you know, everyone's saying, God, Grok, is this true? Or even worse, like they're saying something that they think might get a lot of engagement as opposed to like actually replying to what's being said.
Social media needs to be collaborative, I think. And like, this is back to your point about everybody's doing a bit together if you're all using the same hashtag. Whereas now, something that never would have happened before in old Twitter, if you are jumping on a trend or you are engagement farming to try and boost your earnings, your actual, like, you're getting a monetary reward for this, it takes away the collaboration and it takes away the joy. I mean, it's one of the reasons we haven't monetized the show is we don't want to like lose the thing that makes it fun for us, honestly, is that it's honest to God a hobby. And so when you stop doing things collaboratively, and it becomes, as you're saying, like a point scoring game, you stop cooperating with each other and it's no longer fun.
I mean, I get. Sorry, don't go, Clayton. I've been monologuing.
Well, I'll say, like, I just want to note to like bring it back to like the fundamental misunderstanding of the checkmark is like they've had to totally reinvent the wheel on it, right? Like they have,
they're like gray checks now.
They have different types of check marks. There's like the gray check marks for like people of actual note, like politicians or whatever, right? There's like the gold check mark, which I'm not entirely sure what that actually
it's for
means.
Corporations. I think that's like it's a company.
Okay, so like
to make sure the Eli Lilly thing doesn't happen again, because that was a disaster.
So like so they've got like they recognize the need for like the check mark to like do what it originally did. At least like tangentially they recognize the need for it. Like AOC's got the gray check mark, like different politicians have the gray check mark, right? And so like they understand that there was a point to it, right? But they've like still fucked up the entire thing by having the check mark now be connected to, as you were saying, Megan, all of these like monetary incentives that are like screwing with people's behavior on the platform.
And the thing is, they reinvented the wheel for politics and like corporations, but the big thing that is still fucked up is sports. That like the fact is, like these like accounts of, you know, I'm a big basketball fan, like Shams Charania, who's like the biggest newsbreaker in basketball right now, he has just a regular checkmark. He has like because he wants people to take him seriously, but like anyone else can buy a checkmark and briefly be Shams Charania if they want to be. But no, what I wanted to get to, because so many people ask me, I think that I resent, and it's a kind of a playful thing on my show, is that I resent my audience for being like 18 years old and a bunch of Zoomers and Gen Alpha, and I do because like I'm 29 and I'm a cusper. I consider myself just like I'm the last train out of millennial. I consider myself, and so whenever people will say like this was the best day on Twitter, and they'll say a day that was in like 2022, I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about.
You guys have no fucking clue.
Totally
and I
wrong.
think about what the actual best day on Twitter is, and this is a thing. Also, when people don't, I think is really notable to say whenever we talk about Twitter being good, like actual culture, the heart of Twitter being good was Black Twitter being good, which honestly is part of why Twitter occasionally will still have one or two good things, is Black Twitter really has not died as much as regular Twitter has. But the best day on Twitter.com, in my opinion, is early on in the first Trump administration when there was the Yahoo tweet of Trump wants it was supposed to say bigger Navy, but it didn't say bigger Navy. It said another one. And the tweets about that night, where there was the jokes about that, I think, just as an observer, and this is something I couldn't participate in, but I'm like, that is the most magical. The tweet probably went out at like 8 o'clock, and there was enough material by like 11:30 where I remember like podcasts I listened to were doing material on it the next day. Like it was just like so rapid. And people were making memes, people, you know, and I did an episode of it that actually got deleted from TikTok because I accidentally forgot to censor one of the N-words. And so you can find it on my YouTube. It's episode 51. But I love that night so much. And when I think about why that wouldn't happen now is because the tweets that would be promoted from like the quoting it would be tweets from blue checkmarks. It wouldn't be tweets from regular people. A lot of that they probably wouldn't be emphasized as much in people's For You. I mean, in my opinion, I always use this sequential timeline, but I know people don't. But like, you wouldn't know that trend was happening until the next morning if you used the For You timeline, right?
I think an important.
They screwed up the algorithm so much that doesn't pop up to the top of everybody's feed. But Clayton, I'm sorry, I know you really want to jump in here.
Yeah, well, so I think like to like clarify, like just how you wouldn't have known that was going on till the next morning or whatever. I didn't know that it was going on to the next morning because I was living in France at the time and I missed it. I was asleep.
It was so great.
I was asleep for the whole thing. It's one of my great regrets to this day. But I think it like that illustrates just how much that kind of thing doesn't happen on Twitter anymore. And like to your point, Jacob, like not only would the replies like be people from like, you know, like blue checks rather than regular people who were like boosted to the top and all that. Nowadays, it would be people who are the worst human beings on planet Earth.
Yes, absolutely.
Engagement.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like,
aren't funny.
No, they're not. That's the thing. I think that like it's really just important to emphasize for the purposes of being a good social media. I think if these like right-wing weirdos and goons and losers were even like a modicum of funny, it would be bad for the world, but it would not be as bad for but like they're not funny. Like the observation of it's so the same joke
painfully
again
unfunny
is one of the smarter observations anyone's made. I think I did that last Mother's Day on the show. But I think that like I also think a big thing with the check marks, which never really occurred to me until I saw someone pointed out that like the amount of money you make with blue check is almost none. And actually, you actually can't make money. I learned this when I, was thinking about when TikTok was going away. I'm like, how do I, because unlike you guys, I do monetize the videos I make mostly because I live in New York and it's expensive.
Yeah,
and dude, because honestly, and because I get a lot of people watch them and I'd be leaving a lot of money on the table.
Yeah.
I'm like, is Twitter a thing you can monetize? And what I learned is like, you basically need, I think it's like 1,000 people with blue checks to follow you to even start making money off of blue check. And the amount of money you make per view is extremely small. And so what people smarter than I have realized is like, right, when you go to any of these blue checks that actually make money, or any, like, they're all based in countries like Nigeria or India, where it's like, yeah, if you have a super viral post, you might make like $200 from it, which is not really worth it for, someone in the United States. But if you're in Nigeria, like, I mean, a big phenomenon that I think a lot of people, especially on like politics Twitter, are not aware of in terms of the blue checks. It's obviously there's a lot of blue check stuff with politics or whatever. But, and I don't think I'm speaking at a school saying this, that like, there's a huge phenomenon of horrible discourse on Black Twitter being started by accounts in like Nigeria asking the same like loaded dating questions. It's like a phenomenon that's legitimately, so you've seen it. That like,
absolutely.
That someone will ask again, like, would you ever, is it ever acceptable for a woman to pay on a date? And you go to the account and it's like created 2025 based in Nigeria. And it's like, people joke about it, but it's like, that's actually like really bad for a social media site. If people are doing that, are asking provocative questions specifically to get a debate. And it's even worse that the people who are doing that by the nature of having a blue check mark have their posts boosted compared to people who just have normal posts.
Yes, absolutely. And especially like those particular types of conversations when so much of our politics is inflected by this gender kind of issue, the male loneliness epidemic, or, what kind of women's rights we're going to have in this country. Then to be having that conversation at the same time you have people with a monetary incentive to stirring up trouble on that exact topic, that's a terrible idea for our politics.
I also think that like when it on the monetization point, like there's been such an increase in the last couple of years in just like utter slop posting on Twitter, where it's like intentional vague posting, or like posting a 50-second clip of a video, like the kind of slop you would get on TikTok, right? Like not providing any context and the caption being like, the woman learns to do thing, right? And it's like the first 20 replies are all movie name, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, and no one is responding with the movie's name. And it's all because every single one of these people responding with movie name is also trying to monetize off of this slot posting. And it's just like, it's an endless circle of bullshit posts that like are not fun or entertaining or even really a post to begin with.
My big pet peeve with those is not even the monetization bit, and I know that so many of the people are bots, but like sometimes when you see one of those where it's like the clip is of Matt Damon and Leonardo DiCaprio in the same scene, and it's like, if you don't know the movie that they're in together, I don't want to like, what the I know I'm saying this as someone who's sitting 3 feet from a Blu-ray collection, but it's like, it's one thing if it's like an obscure movie, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is like a, but like, you can stop it. But no, like that, yeah, you're right. It's such, it's anti-social posting. It's not, and just like the amount of effort that people used to put into dumb tweets, to bits on Twitter, it's like, it is, it really felt almost like the thing about Twitter is, even in its heyday, it never was for everyone, and I think that's why I think some people overrepresent not just its influence, but like the influence generally of text-based social media. Like, I think that like most people just are not, are not words people. Like, and that's not to cast aspersions to them. I don't know how to change a tire. I mean, we all have our own strengths and weaknesses. But like, it was really, I think the fact that it was for people who kind of were, in a weird way, it was like a positive version of an open mic night where everyone in the crowd was also going to do stand-up themselves.
Yes.
But it was like, there's no resentment. It's like, we're all in this together. Like,
yeah,
we're rooting for each other.
We're going to have the best time.
Exactly. And so like, that's why, like, I love to ask people, whenever who had a Twitter, like, what was your most successful tweet? Because even if they weren't like trying to be, they were like not a comedian, like everyone has a tweet that they remember doing surprisingly well that they were really proud of, And like, that is the thing, once again, like that isn't you couldn't get elsewhere. But now you would never really have that, because so much of it gets boosted. Like when I see now, and then okay, there are exceptions obviously, but like now when I think of like when people say like what are the most popular, most important tweets of the last year, a lot of them are like contentious conversation, even if it's funny. Obviously, the exception is miscellaneous unk shooting poison on stage, which needs to be in the Library of Congress immediately. But yeah, like it is. You just notice how much more contentious everything is. And I do notice. I don't know if you guys saw. I think The Argument did the poll on Trump approval based on social media site you primarily use.
Yeah.
X was the only one that he had a positive approval rating.
Wow.
And it's like, it's so insane, because I guarantee you at like in like 2013, it definitely would have been the opposite, where Twitter would have had probably like the most liberal.
No, there are actual papers like from the late 2010s that looked at this, like randomizing people into having Twitter accounts, and found that they like increased that group's like Democratic vote share by like 2 percentage points, which is like, doesn't sound like a lot, but is on par with some of the like largest effects we ever see for like persuasive interventions, right?
Nothing does like, that. Yeah.
And I wouldn't be entirely surprised to hear that like Elon heard that and was like, oh no, that's not happening.
Not on my watch.
Like,
we used to value wit is really the thing that I'm taking away from this. And now we just value the ability to get a rise out of people.
I mean, that's what I'm fighting every single day at 4:30 in videos ranging between 2 minutes and 10 minutes. And if they go to 10 minutes, and someone will be like, did you just talk about a tweet for 10 minutes? And the answer is like, yeah, I'm on a podcast talking about tweets for over a half hour now. What are we talking about? But the,
we could talk about this for many more hours.
I think that like, you see a lot, like, the meme, I think, not only a meme, but like the thing people say a lot now, especially on Blue Sky, is that like people like the Elons were trying to destroy the cathedral, the thing that makes liberalism happen. And such as it, I think that explains so much of his changes, because he's like that he thought that the platform is what was making people on it liberal, and not that
the users.
A platform that is primarily about using words to like that is a primarily words-based platform that rewards brevity and wit. That would inherently have people with college educations generally. Like that's why Twitter was liberal. And so I think that he thought that like game it, and what he did, of course, is that I think more than anything, he let the foxes into the henhouse. He let the worst people thrive. And, people don't want to have to deal with that. And that's why I noticed that, like, oddly, the people I find who are still most active on Twitter tend to be people who are, I think, too young to remember Twitter in its heyday. Like, a lot of people who I think would have been big on Tumblr, like, 10 years ago, I see, like, a lot of, like, fandom stuff is still on Twitter. A lot of stuff, like, Stan stuff is still on Twitter. And I think it's because, like, that is, I think, almost more inoculated to just awfulness. Whereas, like, regular people, like, the point I actually try to make all the time about when people are like, is Blue Sky like Twitter again? And the answer is, like, no, because anyone who's there is someone who cares enough and is politically motivated enough to self-select to be off of Twitter because of Elon. And that is like a morally correct thing to do, but is not representative of the average person. The thing I always say is that the second episode I ever did on my show is one of, I think, the best dumb tweet of all time, which is a stack a month is actually 26K a year. And I feel like if you don't have people who are that unabashedly stupid on your platform, you don't have regular people on the platform, and it isn't great. And the fact that Twitter had people like that, like the first sign on Twitter, I think wavering was you kind of lost people like that. You lost the people who would say like, "Why do we bash deadbeat dads? What if the kid has bad vibes?" Like when you lose those posters because they don't want to be around, they don't want to be around, Nazis like that. Not every single person can be to go back to like the open mic conversation. You can have an open mic, but as long as like everyone brings like 3 friends, if it's literally just people who are doing stand up and some of them also just have super racist material, then it's actually just like not fun at all. I miss the people who would say stack about this 26K a year. I mean,
yeah,
I miss her.
Yeah.
I mean, I think she's still active, but.
Well, so this last...
Was it Twitter where we all discovered check kiting at once?
Yes and no. I mean, which time? Because obviously it recently happened. It recently happened on TikTok where there was the infinite money glitch.
There wasn't a the infinite money glitch.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, okay, so they're still there.
I mean, fraud. The thing about fraud, definitely. I think the heyday of people saying Twitter fraud was in the mid-COVID to post-COVID, pre-Elon bit where there was a big, I think the way that it was described was LLC Twitter. People were like, you understand, you make yourself an LLC, anything you can buy, you can write off. Like, that was a big trend, nothing better than someone just unabashedly describing what they think is a get-rich-quick scheme, and is just fraud that has been known about by the government since common law. It's like, yeah.
I always love those are the times when you get a lawyer jumping on there or somebody describing themselves as lawyers. Like, I'm a lawyer, don't do this.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, it's like you make an LLC.
Here's my newest get-rich-quick scheme. Do crimes.
Yeah. If you say that you're an LLC, you can have a credit card and charge everything to it, and then you can say it's for your business. And then people are like, don't you get audited? It's like, I don't know about that. I mean, I think the thing that remember the check kiting thing. My take was I think what happened was I think a generation has grown up with everything being done by computers, and so they're like, I think they think like if it goes through the computer and it says it's okay, then it's done. No one's looking at it. Like I think that's kind of. I mean, it's a lot. I think it's the same thing with like these athletes who like get caught up in like gambling on their own games, where it's like if the site lets me put in $16,000 that I'll get less than 5 rebounds. If it says it's okay, clearly no one noticed. But I think that's what's happening. It was so funny.
That is too funny.
So just as one like last sort of specific question before we move into like the last phase of the sort of like what have we actually lost with Twitter, I want to ask like why is Twitter like worse at showing me things that I'm interested in these days? Like, is it just be like even on like the following tab, right? Like the stuff that I will see is like not stuff that I'm interested in. The stuff that I see in the replies is not stuff that I'm interested in. Megan, you made this point recently as well, right? Like
I have a very specific issue with this. So I am a fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is very difficult for me. I will be looking at the sports tab.
Yeah.
And it shows hockey. It won't even show hockey scores. Mm-hmm. I know there was a Leafs game tonight. I'm trying to check the score.
Are you sure that it wasn't programmed by ESPN?
Honest to God, they're gonna put the games on the Ocho any day now.
Oh, I mean, at least everyone had to tune into Versus, but continue.
I follow not only like the actual official PR account for the Leafs, I follow a whole bunch of people who are tweeting exclusively about the Maple Leafs. Why does the algorithm not know I care about this, but thinks I care about Nigerian dating advice?
The thing is, I straight up don't use any of the tabs, period, so I couldn't, like, I exclusively use I think a weird quirk about me, in this I think will explain a lot of my social media use, and on both Twitter and now on Blue Sky, I never follow so many people. Whereas if I have, unless I've not used the app for 5+ hours, I follow few enough people where I ostensibly could see every single thing that they've tweeted. Now, that's a way I've always been. I don't know why. I'm a completionist, so I'm like, there are a lot of people who like, I will really enjoy the post or whatever, but it's like, I need to keep it under like 250. I need to be able to read everything. So like, I will get through the following, and then I'll go to the For You if I'm feeling like a masochist and I want to hurt myself. But I think the reason is because I think once, I don't know how this works algorithmically, but I really do think once you try to put your thumb on the scale in any way whatsoever, you ruin it. Because like, I think the way of like putting your thumb on the scale for the algorithm to be like showing people like what is most in line with their interests, I think if you tweak that even like 2%, you completely lose it. Because I think because Elon is not most interested in what will make you enjoy or stay on the platform the most. And it's not even like, I don't think every decision is a propaganda one, because like that wouldn't like explain why the dating advice. Like, I don't think Elon's thinking with 5D chess, thinking like, if I promote Nigerian dating stuff, that will cause people to be misogynist, will cause people to vote Republican. I don't think he's thinking like that. I think that he is, as much as he's thinking about like what he wants to promote, it's what will get people like most engaging in like an angry way, almost like when Facebook was having the big thing where they would promote posts to get people mad. I mean, they still do that. Which, like, look how that worked out for Facebook. Facebook's now the thing that, grandpas use. So
yeah,
I have legitimately not even opened the Facebook app in like a couple of years, probably.
Yeah, I'm telling you, the last time I open it, I open it if my mom asks a question about someone I went to high school with, and I'm like, maybe they still are posting there. Oh, they had 3 kids. Good for them. But yeah. No, it is. I think it's really noticeable how, he just ruined the platform because he doesn't understand it. And in a way that's, I honestly think more annoying than Facebook's, because at least with Facebook, they were trying to get people more engaged by getting them angry. Which, like, I think Elon's thing is that he simultaneously wants it to be for like, he wants to make people more right wing, but I think he does also think that he is doing good at what he does. Like, I think that I disagree when people are like, he doesn't care if it does well or not. Like, yes, he doesn't care that much if it doesn't do it, but he thinks that he is making a social media site because he considers the people who the blue checks in his replies to be like the people who are the average person. So, I think
he also just he thinks that he's the funniest guy in the room and doesn't understand why no one else seems to, and also finds the kind of like very not funny humor that the rest of the blue check crowd do to be really funny.
He's the only person who I actually think, and I don't want to give him too much credit, I think that the way in which he is not funny is actually fascinating to me. Like, he is unfunny in a way that anyone I've ever seen in my life. Like, he tries, like, I don't know if I've ever seen someone who wants to be something so bad who doesn't even come close to it. Like, I've seen people like try to be funny who like occasionally, like, the amount of jokes that he does not understand how they work, and he's trying to be funny, and it's like, it is like the sign of like a troop. I don't know, trying to be the guy who jumps is like the only way you get there is you have like a strong personality disorder. Like, I just don't get, and the way that that's now become like the dominant form of humor on the site, because it's all in his image, is really, I mean, like, people have said like Twitter's like, 4chan, it become like 4chan, which is true in some ways, but it's like 4chan had a lot more creativity than that.
Yeah, it's owning is the only form of humor, and owning isn't funny.
Or like because I'm fascinated by the way that Reddit got cleaned up. Like, I think that's a true success story of the internet. The fact that,
like, all of a sudden it's the legit place to go for information.
Yes. Yeah. I saw a post that was like, a lot of people need to update their priors. Reddit is basically the exact opposite as it was in like 2013, 2014. Because I remember, when I joined Reddit, there was like, the whole thing was like, people being like, it would be stifling free speech to ban r/creep shots, which was a subreddit dedicated to like taking creepy photos of women without watching. And like, it finally got banned when a guy who was a fucking substitute teacher was taking creep shots of students. That's what finally took to get banned. Like, and now Reddit is like the most proactively moderated site. And guess what? You hear more and more these days, like, what's actually really good is Reddit. Like, I am such a firm believer in like, you need to be a strong mod. Like, I think even with Blue Sky, like, Blue Sky is definitely not moderated strongly enough in terms of like being like, it's actually not as bad of a problem, but like, if I was a mod of Blue Sky, I would come way harder down on like the edgy leftist accounts that think it's fun to like say that liberal pundits need to die every 2 seconds. Like that, like, I think it's just like, the moment you let that energy in, it is, I mean, it's, like, once, like, death threats and horrible bits of, like, the thing I was thinking about is on Twitter now, if anyone, you can post I guarantee you, if in the Olympics in a couple weeks, there is a photo of, like, let's say I'm making something up, a 17-year-old snowboarder who wins a gold for the United States, and she takes a photo with her parents, and one of her parents is white and one of her parents is black. All of the quote tweets are going to be, like, noticing, and that's it. Like, that's all it is. And I think that, like, if you don't nip the initial racist stuff in the bud, then you eventually get there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's why, like, it really does feel, the thing that this feels most similar, Twitter feels most similar to now, is bad subreddits in, like, 2014. It reminds me so much of, like, I remember the thing I think about is when there's that whole Doja Cat controversy of her being in racial chat room showing feet.
Mm-hmm.
Remember she used a couple words that I only knew from racist subreddits in 2014, and I'm like, I don't care what she says, she's a racist. I don't see that word. That word did not break contain, so you clearly were in places that I saw them in the context of, we need to get rid of this subreddit. Anyway, and, like, when you see stuff like that, when you see that energy just as, like, a loud, and it's the thing that's so sad is anytime, like, the noticing thing happens and you see regular people who don't get it and you're like, oh, you don't know how bad it's gotten. You don't know that people that were actually back in a place where it's just like, I'm noticing that an interracial couple exists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's so
I think to this point, like, you know, I don't really post hardly at all on Reddit, but I spend a lot more time there than I used to. And I think, like, you're absolutely right about, like, the sort of flip of, like, the kind of people who are there. Right? Like, they're no longer in the, like, incredibly problematic racist subreddits. They're now on, like, the top of your For You feed on Twitter. And I think that, like, this week in the class that I'm teaching, we talked about, like, free speech and academic freedom and all that, and, like, sort of the contours and limits of all that. And it's like, freedom of speech is there to protect you from the state. It's there to protect you from the government, right? Like, no one should, like, throw you in jail for being racist.
Social opprobrium remains fair game.
It's not there to protect you from, like, being fired for being an asshole or facing social consequences for, like, being a jerk, right? Like, the example that I give is, like, you know, like, my wife is Hispanic, right? And so, like, if I have some conservative friends who, like, you know, are not, like, weird pseudo-scientific racist people, and, like, we have different interests beyond politics and we can hang out and, like, those contexts, and it's perfectly fine to hang out with them. But if they were to start, like, talking about, like, the hordes crossing the southern border, like, then they can't come around anymore, right? Like, that's just not a thing that I'm gonna hang out with, right? Like, and that's the kind of people that we're welcoming into these social media platforms, and then saying, well, we can't, like, do anything about that because freedom of speech. It's like, that's not what freedom of speech is.
About it. Twitter was always bad about banning people. Like, it always was.
Yeah.
And I think, like, it got a little bit better about it right before Elon bought it, honestly. I think that's part of why he was so mad about it. I mean, let's not forget that it was Tallulah Riley emailing him about the Babylon Bee getting banned. So I just always think about the fact that it is a true statement that Twitter has been ruined, and possibly the 2024 election swung to Donald Trump because of the woman who is currently married to the little kid from Love Actually. But that's just a note that I need to make clear. But yeah, like, that, I think that it really is, like, whenever people, like, talk about sort of being like, oh, it's the public square or whatever, like, I think that that's a stupid metaphor. But also, in this public square, everyone understands that a guy who shows up with a megaphone and starts shouting racial obscenities, like, there is no other conversation going on. You know what I mean? Like, it's the thing about, like, if someone shows up to a dinner and is, like, wearing a full Nazi uniform and has a gun, every conversation is going to be informed by the fact that that guy's there. Like, and I think that obviously it's not the fact that there could be like, targeted harassment campaigns and things like that, and the amount of harassment that people now, I mean, people have always gotten too much harassment on Twitter, but the amount that has happened so immediately, you know, like, I don't want to be specific, but I have a friend who, like, I know through Twitter, who recently got a targeted harassment. And just, like, the tenor of it immediately went to, like, one thing that's just so frustrating is immediately, oh, you're Jewish, not a Jewish person, for one. Two, like, and like, really so much tagging of bosses and of, you know, libs of TikTok got involved. And it's like, it just completely changes the tenor of any conversation you're going to have if that's at risk. And once again, the people can be like, well, there was the woke people canceling people. And like, yes, that was bad and annoying. But I do think that there just is a fundamental, when the people who are connected to these people are so powerful that like, at any point, if you run afoul of the right wing on Twitter, there's a non-zero chance that like fucking government officials will tag your boss and be like, why are they still working for you? Like that is also like, it's just not, it's so antithetical to having an interesting conversation, and it's so antithetical to being entertaining. Because the thing that first and foremost, the reason I love, I was so big into Twitter, even in like 2012 when my friends are mostly still on Facebook, is like Facebook is about keeping in touch with people. That's fine, but Twitter is about being entertaining, and like it's just like less entertaining, and that's not the most important thing in the world. But I think it explains like why do regular people want to be on there less. It's like it's actually just like you. In like 2013, you were willing to deal with the fact that it was not moderated as strongly as other sites because it was fun, you know? But now,
yeah.
It's not fun. It's not fun anymore.
The way that I sort of, and to bring it to the like point about both the digital town square and the like, well, is there like left-wing woke mob culture, right? Is like my like hypothesis, thesis kind of thing here for like the woke mob was that really the only thing that the woke mob did was like inflate consequences for already legibly wrong behavior. And that's not what's happening anymore.
no.
In a way that like totally shuts down other types of conversations that like even like peak woke wasn't doing. And so to that point, I want to ask, like, you said that you don't really think like the town square, the public square is like a good metaphor for what Twitter was.
No, it's okay, but it's not great.
But I want to ask, like, at least those of us who spend more of our time in politics Twitter, right? Those of us who are masochists and right, like don't really have any other things to spend our time on there. Feel like we have lost something in the form of public discourse and conversation. So what do you think has been lost? And especially, like, what do you think has been lost as part of that broader ecosystem of journalists and you know, people using Twitter in that way?
And I think the biggest thing that's been lost is the proximity to people with power in like a healthy way. Because like, you know, there obviously are still people who have powerful people still have like accounts that they tweet things, but like, I think that it often was misused, but it actually, there was something really cool about how it was a two-way street where like back in the day I always respected people who ran their own Twitter accounts so much. Like I was like I would like a celebrity so much if you could tell they were tweeting, you know, or like when like a new celebrity would come about, like, you know, one of the main reasons I first started standing the extremely controversial and had to stop tweeting star Rachel Zegler is because you look at her Twitter, it's like, this is a person who
Yeah.
like whenever people ask me like what celebrities do you want on your a show, I'm like, she's the person who would get. I think I have like the 600 entries almost I've done. She probably would get like 500 of them, and so that's why I started standing her, which was not great for my mental health for reasons later. But I think what people I think it was actually really valuable that there were people who were serious people important people who actually wanted to be informed by people. Because now you have conversations on the Blue Sky, which is people who, I think you know so much of the tenor of why conversations on Blue Sky can get so annoying really quickly is because it's almost exclusively people with no power who are just yelling at each other. And the thing that they're yelling about is the fact that they don't have that much power. And it's like, okay, the reason why this discussion about Senate Democrat tactics is devolving this quickly is because there's actually no solution that you alone can reach. And so I think that when those conversations between people like journalists and actual politicians and people involved in politics were happening, that it allowed, and because Twitter, even though now it's the exact opposite, self-selected for, I think, serious people who actually put thought into things compared to other social media sites, that like, it did sort of have a, you know, what was it called? Like, this is where my BFA is coming in. What was the term of the French where they would, like, the smart people all hang out, talk to each other?
The salons?
The salons, exactly, the salons, thank you. Honestly, that's what I thought it was, but I'm like, if you're wrong, you just sound like you're saying they're in a salon. But like, it gave a little bit of that. And I will say that that's a thing that I think outside of just politics, it's also been lost. Because I mean, like, I would say like the main sphere of Twitter that I'm kind of in is like entertainment Twitter a little bit. I've never really been like a devoted big poster in anything, in any specific one. And that's obviously gotten way worse. And I never have as little faith in the youth than when I read their takes about movies. Even more so than politics. Like, honestly, like, I hate to say it, but like, when I saw Gen Z's shift to Trump, that made me feel really bad about the youth. And then when I see them say shit about movies and TV shows, or about, like, trying to cancel, they're trying to cancel freaking Dr. Robbie on The Pit. And I'm like, I can't do this. And
they're the people who don't know when Brad Pitt and Matt Damon are in the same scene. Like,
you mean Leo, but yeah, because Brad Pitt and Matt Damon are in multiple movies together. It's specifically Three Oceans movies, but
right, yes.
Like, I really do think that the presence of not like even super famous people, like people who are like proximately famous or have approximate this to power, that the fact that they can interact not with like the random people screaming, but like the amount of like actually smart people. Like, there's this video I'm going to cover soon where it's like, does anyone know anything about like the fall of the Roman Republic? And then like the response is, guy who has 168 followers. Yeah, I work at a bakery and I'm pretty drunk right now, but this PDF should work out for good for you. Like, the fact that like people are actually interested in stuff, were able to talk about people who had power in that, was powerful. And I think that that's why I always roll my eyes a little bit about the Twitter is not real life thing. Because I think it's true that Twitter is not real life in terms of like, Twitter is not a representative sample of the average person, but there are real people on there. And so like, to use it as a representative sample of the average person, which is now what Republicans are doing, they're making content exclusively for people on Twitter, is silly. But to act as though like the people on Twitter only exist on Twitter is like, no, like they're kind of in a way like the most engaged people. So yeah. I don't know. It's frustrating that we lost that.
I think this is sort of like the crucial way that I have experienced Blue Sky differing from Twitter, and quite frankly, like differing from like TikTok as well, is that the kind of person who like really self-selects into being on Blue Sky, and like, I think I sort of cultivate, I like to think that I cultivate a more engaged erudite following, but I can't be funny on Blue Sky in the way that I can be funny on TikTok or on Twitter or on this podcast, right? Like every time that I post something that's just like a total throwaway, right? Like, Megan, you probably also have this annoyance about Bunch, people taking the elevator to the second floor, right? This is the building we work in. Sorry, Jake. People taking the elevator to the second floor. It irks me to no end, and I think we need to have some sort of treaty for people taking the elevator to the second floor of this
know what thing's really awful? The building I work in, I actually work on a second floor, and for reasons I don't understand, internal staircase, the doors are locked, so I have to take the elevator to the second floor.
You have to do it? Okay, you do not have that excuse.
No, I understand.
This is not the case in our building. Our building has like a really large staircase, quite frankly.
I understand. I hate it every single time I'm with someone, like, please tell me they know that I'm not leaving. I have no choice. If I were to go there, I get locked out. I don't know what to tell you. Anyway,
so I have posted about this before, like us needing to have a serious conversation as a society about people taking the elevator up only one floor. Literally nothing, right? But then when I post something about being angry about Stephen Miller and how I wish we could charge Stephen Miller with the crime of being Stephen Miller, like, that does well, right? But I don't want to always be that, right?
No.
And so, I can't do that anywhere else, really.
Quite frankly, I'm a little surprised you didn't get accused of ableism.
That's what I thought. That's where I thought this was going.
Yeah,
I mean, I think the thing too is, I think the thing about Twitter too is that, like, I think Twitter is really good for me and people like me, and I think people like us, where, like, I think that there are a lot of people who being serious is inverse to them being funny, whereas, like, I think that I like joking about serious topics. Like, I take joking very seriously, and the thing I love so much about doing my show is that, like, it is informative, and that's a lot, but, like, every moment I'm trying, if I can make it funny, I'll make it funny. I think that being funny, I come from a family where, like, at every moment, you could be making a joke. Like, I would say, like, 60% of the conversation is, and I think the big thing is, I think the thing that Twitter's really good about is that, like, there were a lot of jokes, but a lot of things were just, like, observations or thoughts that were written in a funny manner, and I feel like Blue Sky does not have that at all, because everyone's so self-serious. So if you make, I also thought, like, when you said the Stephen Miller for being Stephen Miller thing, I'm sure you got people in the replies being like, I think that Stephen Miller should get charged for treason. He's treasonous against the United States. I think it's actually really important to have a humorous sheen on, like, actual thoughts. Because my brain's broken for, I don't know, maybe I watched too much TV growing up, but, like, anytime I'm trying to have a thought, the first thought is, like, how can I phrase it in a way that will be entertaining to people? And that's why Twitter was so good for me, because it's like, I have a thought, like, it's entertaining to people. And I think that Blue Sky has some of that, and I think it waxes and wanes. But like the stuff that goes super viral on there is not about. It's just about like it feels unfortunately so much like political Facebook, where it's like just the strongest statement you can make, and like the most like I share if you think that they're guilty of treason. And it's like I get it, but also like you just remember like there's some people who like not having a sense of humor is not like a right or left thing. It's like, oh, you're just like you don't think this way. You're not actually thinking about being funny all the time.
Yeah, it's the Occupy Democratization of Twitter is
yes.
That's
what if we built
throwback,
the plane
right?
out of Brooklyn Dad Defiant? I'm glad that there's the amount of rooms that I could say that and people would get it is very small, so I appreciate that.
All right. Well, I do know that you have an important engagement later this evening, Jake, and I want to make sure that you can make it there.
Megan, I texted Clayton, messaged Clayton. I'm like, hey, how long do you think this is going to go? Not important. I just need to know what showing of Send Help I need to get tickets to. And so I actually I've doxed myself many times this way before. I live a 10-minute walk from a movie theater, so I should be able to still stop at my local barbecue spot, get food there, and then go to Send Help at 7:10. So thank you so much for getting me. I mean, that's how you set an evening up.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, Jake, for coming on the show,
talking to us about
the history of this beautiful place we used to call Twitter. For the audience who might be expecting a solutions part of the episode, that's not happening.
Ultimately, I think that if you were to ask me like the ways to make a text-based social media site like work, the problem ultimately isn't this thing. You could find tweets from me saying this in like 2014. It's like, what would make Twitter most functional to people who want to use Twitter is antithetical to what would cause a social media site to grow, which is kind of why like Blue Sky, like when people like Blue Sky is dying, it's like, yes, the reason it's dying is because every year there are less and less people who want to be on sex-based social media. That's not a design problem.
It's quote unquote dying. It means it's working because you're only retaining people who want to adhere to the norms of the space.
Yeah, exactly. So it is what it is. But no, I wish that there was, a place like Twitter still, but like, I don't know. I also think that like, I actually really like doing TikTok more than I thought I would, because the thing about having the algorithm be so genuinely good at matching people is like, I actually just don't get that many people who want to be argumentative because they just don't, my videos just don't show up in the feed.
Yep.
I mean, you do. You get people all the time because the times I get people being argumentative, in the most recent time was at the episode that I had you on as a guest, is the only times I get people being argumentative is whenever I deign even like, kind of like send a little jab left in any way. That's the only time.
No, I will
So I
say
feel like it's Clayton who's the problem here.
No, this is the last thing that I'll say before we jump off here. I talk about Republicans all the time, and it's fine, and I get conservatives in the comments being dumb and annoying, but whenever I punch left, for what I think are valid reasons, I get people acting like I am somehow like the devil incarnate.
Yeah,
like at the beginning of last year, or maybe not the beginning of last year. Like right after Mamdani won the primary, I talked about how I didn't think that free buses was actually like the best use of that fund. I got so many people in the comments telling me that I hated poor people because I thought that the better use of that funding was to expand transit into poor neighborhoods. That's the kind of thing that happens on Blue Sky. That's the kind of thing. Yeah.
The only time I've ever
you've lost.
The only time I've ever gotten someone who took the effort to make a video angry response to me was the most recent one we did with you. That's the only time. And I'm like, and it was, but no, and I think I stand by that one. The one that most recently got me a lot of mad at me is when I did the Tyler Austin Harper, I'm not going to send your kids to the Middle East for a pointless fucking war. And people were like, if Kamala was going to send us to the Middle East, why did she say that they wanted the military to be lethal? And I'm like, you're smarter than this. I trust me. I'm sure that you can work it out.
I'm sure people are smarter than this at this point.
They're not. But no, thank you so much for having me on. Megan, by the way, if there's a hockey Twitter tweet, because I've been accused, because I grew up in Florida, did not grow up around hockey. I've neglected it. So if there's ever a hockey Twitter tweet you want to come on for, let me know. Anything with the Leafs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I'm trying to, and I need to get some more EPL tweets. I've really neglected soccer.
Yeah. Well, hockey's really captured the zeitgeist right now. So
I'll be honest with you. That video of Mark Carney and Hudson, wow. And then the bit where he was talking about how he greenlit it, that was really special.
Good stuff.
Yep.
Good stuff.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on, Jake. We're always happy to be of service. Until Elon sells the platform, I have been Clayton Becker.
I've been Megan Cox.
And I've been Jake Christie. I didn't know that we were doing that, but sure.
Yeah, why not?
All right. Goodbye, everyone. See you on the next one.